WMMC HD3 Detroit, KMPS HD3 Seattle, WBMX HD3 Boston.
And on AOL Radio and Yahoo Launchcast. Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com. Believe.
How do you keep a parasite from becoming a poltergeist? What factors have to be in place for possession to take place? Are you in more danger of being abducted by aliens if you're intelligent?
Hey there, and welcome to the 496th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Ben, and those questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. So this evening, we bring you an open line show, and we invite your calls. The number is 248-545-7685. So let us get right to it.
All right. We'll start with some recent Facebook questions. Came in Facebook. As we said, our online form isn't working anymore, and I don't know when it's going to be back up, so you can use Facebook or just our email address, which we will give numerous times throughout the show. This one is from Mark Shanley in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Please tell us where you're from.
Alrighty. So Mark writes to us, I'm really interested in your struggles against parasites, and in your view...
poltergeists.
Poltergeists, whatever. And your view of what they are and how they work is really different. My question is, how do you prevent a parasite from turning into a poltergeist, and how does that happen?
Okay, well, probably the best thing to do is, as we talk about preventive medicine, which is what? Positive energy. What do they eat? They literally eat negative energy, apparently. I can't put a scientific finger on that, but that's the way it's seemed to me for all these years. What you do is eliminate the negative energy, or keep it out. Better yet, keep it out in the first place. Now, that's good advice for any family.
Right. Well, I mean, why would you have it there in the first place?
Well,
there's a lot of reasons as to why, but
we live in a very negative world, right?
Yeah.
Not that it's, well, I mean, sometimes it's more positive than
well, I try not to watch the news, so...
Well, unfortunately, I've been a newsman for 35 years at newspapers.
Doesn't mean you have to
I couldn't help it.
Doesn't mean you have to pay attention to it. There are plenty of people who write who have no clue what they're talking about.
One of my jobs at the Providence Journal was to monitor the CNN, for heaven's sake.
You can live in the world, but not be of the world.
Well, that's true. Well, plus, that was also a long time ago. I left there quite a few years ago.
There we are.
Luckily, as I hear. Anyway, that being as it may, it's positive energy, Mark. What do I mean by that? In other words, keep your family close. Even if you have no one, the whole lesson of the multiverse is that you have everyone. You are never alone, and you are always loved. In some world or other, because we talk about these parallel worlds, and they seem to be real places with real people, and that seems to be the best science on it, as strange as it may seem. You always have loved ones. You have children who were never born in your conscious world here. You have all sorts of loved ones who, and this is not some sappy spirit world kind of nonsense. This is as real as it gets, as they say. You have lots of presences in many different worlds that are worlds where the laws of physics are different, and the reality of people you're connected with, which is pretty much everyone, in parallel worlds is a day-to-day affair. I've encountered worlds like that in paranormal work, and people who live in them. Sometimes non-people who live in them who are pretty nice or neutral or not so nice. It all depends. Everything is there. So that's essentially it. Keep it positive. Your loved ones, tell them that you love them. Don't wait. Keep it positive. Be honest. Be loving. Be truthful, of course, as I say, honest. And have good humor. Don't laugh at each other, but laugh. Keep the good humor there. It's a very powerful thing. In a way, good humor is maybe an aspect of love.
Yeah.
In a strange way, So just keep it positive, and I think that these things won't happen.
Like if you're able to poke fun at each other, but not make fun of each other, is
well, exactly, not in a hurtful way.
Right.
Because hurtful is negative.
Yes.
And you can turn a positive thing like laughter and make it negative, and that's very bad. And that happens all the time. One of the things we find in cases is that you have had isolation. That seems to be what parasites look for. As a matter of fact, when they pick a host and attach themselves to that host, that person is often isolated, sometimes from the rest of the family. Maybe they've been closer to the parasites than they have to their own loved ones. How do you do that? Well, you use things you shouldn't use, like Ouija
boards and tarot cards and things like that.
Yeah, now have you noticed lately that, at least in looking around the paranormal crosstalk that goes on all over the place, Ouija boards seem to be being rehabilitated almost. There are people who advise that you use them, and they'll say, well, here's how to avoid the problem. I think that is unbelievably stupid.
Well, I mean, if there's any way to make money off something, they'll find a way to make money off it.
Well, that's it. Well, I've been after Milton Bradley for years to stop making it because they're going to listen to me. In any case, keep it positive. Keep away from that stuff. And don't be isolated from others. It's funny, the parasites, there might be a large family that they are, let's say, farming, so to speak, but they still concentrate on one, at least in my experience. Not always, but they'll feed off one, but they really concentrate on one person. And when they can't get that person, they'll move on to someone else. We certainly saw that in the Burrillville, Rhode Island case.
Yeah.
And I've seen it all over the place. So keep it positive. Avoid problems before they happen. That's what I would say. And how does it happen? Well, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. So
well, you sort of said that.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for writing, Mark. Next one is some SE
keys. Looks like keys.
What are we doing with the last? Well, okay. We usually don't use. Anyway, SE from Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. All right. Well.
Usually the one jumping on me.
Sorry. I'm used to the forums where it said don't use this.
I know.
Blah, blah.
Well, you're more stuck in.
Well, I mean, people can just go on Facebook and look at this stuff anyway.
Well, no, because it comes in. Usually, these come in the form of private.
Crap. All right. Well, now,
all right.
Now we know already.
Not to. Anyway.
Alrighty. So, SE writes to us from Massachusetts. Can a poltergeist turn into a demonic possession? I had chills when you said that poltergeists come after one person. There we go.
Yeah,
in a family, then and another. How does that turn into a possession?
Well, it doesn't necessarily do that. There's a question of do all species of poltergeist cause what we in folklore know? Well, it's not just folklore; it happens. Know as possession. I mean, it would be most folklore. Most people think of these as demons, in the sense of servants of Satan. Well, I think that's a way for us to understand it. Or sometimes some cultures have thought of them as vampires or life-sucking ghosts, quite literally. But I think the reality of it is that these are life forms that are just trying to live on their own, and what they do is that they will use your energy. They're parasites. They're almost like cosmic mosquitoes. The trouble with them especially is that they're very intelligent. They learn very quickly about you. They can become attached to you in very unhealthy, but it's all unhealthy, but very unhealthy ways. So one of these very unhealthy ways is what we traditionally will call possession. Now, when I was working in a psychiatric hospital or two in the 1970s as a seminary student and as a grad student in psychology, I began to, we were, of course, approaching it, and there were possession cases that we believed were occurring, and exorcisms did take place, obviously very, very hushed up. And the problem was that something was wrong. Just as I say something is wrong with the original theories, not the original theories, but the 19th century theories about ghosts and spirits and all this business. It's just not enough. It doesn't quite do it. It's not adequate to explain the reality. In the same way, I sort of ran into that in dealing with cases of possession and that required, as we thought at the time, exorcism. Now, I wasn't making the decisions. I was just a seminary student. There was a priest. So however, I have never seen there can be poltergeist occurrences that will accompany possession, but there are some complex factors. For example, in the possession cases I've been involved with, a number of times I was involved really with 10 knockdown drag-out ones. And there were situations where things on shelves across the room would move. There was what you could call basic poltergeist activity. But as far as living in a house where poltergeist activity is taking place, such as many of the cases we've discussed on this show, to have it move right into a possession situation is possible, but I haven't seen it. As a matter of fact, it's rather logical. But it seems that when they get enough to eat to be poltergeists, and there's also a question of whether they're actually doing some of these things, and then sort of the energies around them, maybe moving the furniture or throwing stuff at me or whatever's happening. And then the issue may be is the entity really doing that? Can it use it as a stepping stone to a possession? What I have found is that they do, oddly enough, seem to be separate phenomena. And for a possession to occur, I've seen that the possessee, the person who is undergoing this as a victim, has to give a sort of tacit approval to it. And that often takes place through liking the attention. That's why they're bothering with these cosmic entities. In other words, they may have a very negative life, and they think that, wow, I may have failed at this, or this doesn't work, or I hate this person or that person. However, this really amazing cosmic being is paying attention to me. And these things will pretend to be ancestors or relatives or loved ones
or whatever.
Some, beings, cosmic beings, or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, there's also sort of a unconscious agreement too, if you will. I mean,
yes.
People could be possessed and just not even know it. I mean, they'd like...
Yeah, in that sense, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always the dramatic stuff we met in the hospital.
No, I mean, it could just be like, well, I'm making terrible life decisions because I want to do it.
Yeah.
So thus, through negative behaviors, negative entities are attracted.
So it is very complex.
Yes.
And I would say just do the same thing we told Mark. Keep it positive. That's your best defense.
Right.
Because positive energy repels them.
Mm-hmm.
Love, humor, etc. So I would say that would be it. Okay, we are ready to take our first break, and you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS New Sky Radio, or newskyradio.com, I should say, radio.com. We'll be right back to continue your messages.
Enlighten, empower, enrich. This is CBS Radio's The New Sky. New horizons, no boundaries. Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com. Believe.
Welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I am Ben, and over here is Paul. And we are going over emails because we have a huge stack of them about to burst right through the ceiling and into the sky. They're just... well, yeah, and we are on CBS The Sky. So...
yes.
So and figuratively and literally, we are breaking through the sky. Anyway, we are moving on to our... wait, did we finish the possession email? Or,
yes, I think so.
Okay, so we're moving on now to Matt from Arlington, Massachusetts, who writes to us, in your research on flap areas or paranormal hotspots, have you had a chance to look at Auschwitz or other places where death camps once existed? I can't imagine that any place could be more haunted than that.
Well, that's a good question.
Not like we've ever been there, so...
No, we have not been to any of those sites. However, but we've been to Gettysburg, for example.
Yeah.
Certainly not far from the same context, but a place where great numbers of people died violently, you know.
Or even like the Vlad the Impaler's castle.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Well, I have talked to people who've been to all those places, including Vlad the Impaler's castle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they said there is a certain aura or atmosphere there of great, depends, sadness. Some people have felt very, not uplifted, but have not felt weighed down, but even at places like Auschwitz, because there is a certain... Well, for example, recently, I think it was 2010 or 2011, the son of Hirsch, the commander of... What was it, Auschwitz? I can't remember which campus. I think it was Auschwitz. He was commander of. And his grandson, who was deeply ashamed of his grandfather's past in the Nazi SS, went to Auschwitz to visit, sort of with a documentary film producer and a friend, to purge himself of this. And he was already old. He wasn't quite as old as myself, but he was, I believe he was in his late 40s, early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was that there was a large group of people from Israel, young people from Israel, who were visiting the place, and it is a museum, of course, that has never been torn down, and unlike some of the other camps, and it's a Holocaust museum, really. And the children from Israel, he met them, and he broke down in tears. He said how sorry he was, and the whole business, and they ended up embracing and hugging one another. And an old man who happens to have been a survivor of Auschwitz under this man's grandfather,
wow,
came up and embraced him. I mean, talk about, you really can't heal something like that, but you can get close by, again, positive energy, love. Can you imagine the feast parasites must have had at that place?
Oh, geez, yeah.
And now to displace that negative energy with some kind of love was absolutely incredible. It was an unbelievable experience, I was told. So there we have it. Absolutely. And I think it was made into a film production, although it's in German. So I don't know if you can get it or not, but it was just absolutely wonderful thing to hear about, in the circumstances that it existed. So, but yes, there have been, people have had experiences. Matt, people have reported alternate states of consciousness, multiversal experiences. Also at Gettysburg, any place like this, people will see sometimes the inmates, or in the case of Gettysburg, soldiers marching, things of this kind. This is, again, the normal state of the planet. When we are in the proper state ourselves.
Well, I mean, if something so horrible sends waves throughout the multiverse,
that's very true, right?
That I think that more answers his question.
I think you're right. Yes, you answer more succinctly than I do, Ben. You don't lecture as much as I do. However, one might say too, do you think that the positive experiences, extremely positive events, also send ripples through the multiverse, echoes?
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying that, like, how to put this? It doesn't exactly cancel out because that negative thing is still going on somewhere, somewhen. I mean, it may quiet it.
Well, I'm not
yeah.
talking about Auschwitz in particular. When you go to a place, you go to certain places.
Right.
Remember when you were at the reservation in Arizona with the Navajo people? And
Yeah.
You went to Canyon de Chelly?
Yeah.
And you said there was that the part? There have been places where both of us have felt very positive things.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Well, that's because I didn't go down into the valley because it's a sacred place. I didn't want to mess with it.
Right.
Because everyone was like, "Yeah, let's go down there." I was like, "I don't feel comfortable doing that."
Yeah, people who the good old Western mind. I mean, people don't mean any harm, I'm sure, but they just have no sense of the sacred.
Yeah, they got yelled at by a bunch of natives.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just because they were just like walking around like, "Hey, be careful."
Yeah, no, this is real stuff, and it's not superstition. I mean, these are thin places where worlds overlap, and there's a certain balance that has to be maintained. You go blundering in there with the Western mentality, which there's such hypocrisy in our mentality. I don't mean to be negative, but we talk so much about the environment and living with nature, and we don't have a clue.
No, well, I mean, there was another portion of the reservation, not to get too much into a tangent, but where there were like human remains left over or whatever. I think it was like an old burial ground there was a flood or something, so it took up all the bones, and there was some there was some pottery around, and some of the natives specifically said, "Don't take any of the pottery, don't take anything from here, because if you do, bad things will happen."
Yeah.
And I mean, usually I don't believe in hocus pocus, but I was like, I don't want to mess with that.
No, there are good practical quantum reasons for that.
Yeah, I mean, geez,
not like the dead are going to come after you or anything. I don't know. There's a certain balance of the energies that should be maintained.
Right. I mean, it's just reverence and
yes. And disrespect is negative and attracts parasites.
Right. I mean, geez, it's like have some respect for these people.
Well, that's something that's in very short supply in this society is respect. Everybody's tied up in themselves, and respect is everything. It even comes before love, as we've said.
Indeed.
All right, so thank you for writing that.
Moving on. On to something entirely different.
Not for something completely different. This is from Henry in Sewickley, Pennsylvania.
Ooh, what a fun place to be from. He says, your ideas about what happens when we die are very intriguing. 2 questions. First, is the death experience the same for everyone? And what real evidence do you have for any of this?
That's 2 very good questions.
Very good questions.
I'm thinking of many of the people we've had on who have had near-death experiences and things of this kind.
Right.
And I'm wondering, a lot of them are quite different. People think the near-death experience is with
this is the death experience.
This is the death experience. So the question is, the near-death experience, did you really die? Although some people have been out for a long time and clinically dead, and longer than you would expect.
Yeah.
To then have them come back at least without brain damage. So it's an open question. So I don't know. I mean, obviously nobody knows for sure. We'll all find out one way or the other. But I think we have a lot to say in it. I personally think, from having seen a number of people translate or die, mostly in hospital situations, except for one I don't want to talk about, but in the hospital situations, there seemed to be levels of transition that would occur. Many had, I suppose, what might be called near-death experiences, but actually didn't, quote, come back.
Right.
They seem to see things. They seem to be detaching from this consciousness and moving, as things do in nature, with the path of least resistance, to where they already are in parallel worlds. And this is an important distinction. What happens when we die? Well, really nothing happens when we die. Yeah, we this particular leaf on the tree that we have here wears out and falls to the ground. But you don't, because you're the whole tree.
Right.
And where you're just as conscious. This is often where people get confused. I believe that you're just as conscious in parallel worlds, in parallel lives, as you are here. Maybe more so. That's why you could help yourself in other lives. That's perhaps what the psychics and mediums talk about. Maybe don't completely understand, but talk about more enlightened lives of the higher self.
Oh yeah, the higher self.
Yeah, but I mean, that could be you in parallel worlds where you're much more aware. So I don't think anything happens really Henry. I think that when we translate, our consciousness shifts to where we're already there and already conscious in the world that is closest to us. So if you are a terrible person or a real jerk in your particular consciousness here, I think that's unfortunately where you end up.
Right.
And people say, well, what about ghosts? I mean, well, where do they come from if this isn't it? Well, I mean, the ghost situation, I think, is either entities that are pretending to be human or humans who really are human. I remember at the Paranormal Conference in West Virginia in 2003, I was speaking. Somebody asked, well, how come ghosts don't know they're dead? I said, well, they don't know they're dead. Very easy to answer that. They don't know they're dead because they're not.
Ha.
So I mean, what? So,
confusing everybody.
No, actually, people seem to get it. When you're speaking before an audience, you kind of watch their eyes.
Right.
You can tell if they get it or they don't, or if they disagree. And because I run into that, as you know, because you're up there now too with me when we speak.
Yeah.
But generally, people do tend to get it. So I think that's essentially it. You yourself determine what happens after you translate, Henry. And you determine that by the positive energy in your life, by the positive nature of your spirit, by where you are most connected to yourself in other parts of the multiverse. If you're most connected to the negative parts, where you are a parasite or where you are, the commander of a concentration camp, then obviously it's a problem. All right.
What about second question? What real evidence do you have for any of this?
Well, there really is no real evidence. Well, the question is, what is evidence in anything?
Ha!
That's the thing. As in most cases in the paranormal, Henry, it's circumstantial evidence. I always say, I am not a scientist, neither has Ben. My impressions and my theories and methods have come from long experience in the trenches, observing. Now, maybe I observed wrong. I've actually had the ghost hunter types tell me, well, this can't be right, or you're wrong about this. Well, maybe I am. And Ben grew up with me listening to 5,000 of my lectures, so he tends to agree with me from that point of view, but also because...
Indoctrinated.
Not to speak for him, but I think his own experience has backed up some of this.
Yeah.
And it is a matter of interpretation. But I think that the evidence is one of observation, which of course is not valid either, because really our senses, everything, people say, well, maybe the paranormal is all in people's heads. Well, of course it's all in people's heads. Everything is in people's heads. Everything we sense, we touch the desk, or we touch something, or we see something with our, it's all in our heads. Where does the information go? It goes to our brains, which interprets it.
Right.
So they're really, and hence the motto of our show, everything you know is wrong. We don't know anything. Really, in the end, all we have is God and each other. And some of you have a question about God, but that's another story. So we do the best we can, Henry, and all we can do is convince ourselves, really. If we ourselves are not self-satisfied, but satisfied with the evidence that we have, I think that I am satisfied that at least I think we are on the right track here. But we are prepared to admit that we're wrong. So that's really the best answer I can give you.
Great.
All right. So at this point, we are preparing for another break. And we are having an open line show this evening on Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS News Sky Radio and radio.com. Stay with us, and we will not be mad at you. See you in a few minutes.
Enlighten, empower, enrich. This is CBS Radio's The New Sky. New horizons, no boundaries.
This heart of mine is burning slow. My time has yet to come. So darling, don't you be cross with me. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And I won't lie, I won't try to make you lift this heart of stone. And I won't hide, girl, I'm on your side. I'll make you feel at home, make you lose that urge to roam. If you love me, don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger.
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com.
Well, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal, and we are having an open line show this evening, and we are reading some very interesting questions from listeners, most of which have come in over Facebook. And I have to tell you that I do edit these. I am, after all, a professional editor, and however, I do not edit the questions. In other words, I will take out. They come in usually, and we ask you to send them privately over the message feature on Facebook, unless you want everybody to see them and your name. We take out the greetings. We do appreciate the kind words that you have for us, but we'll take it out. We're just editing it down to the questions, really, to save time and get more questions in. So that's what we've done with these. So this one is from Mike Lilly, and he doesn't say where he is from. We do ask you to say just even your state or province or wherever you happen to be, and whether or not you want us to use your full name. All right, this one, I take it that Mike has thrust his tongue into his cheek and has asked this question. I can't think of anybody better to answer the question, what is the secret of the universe? Or in your case, the multiverse. Okay, well, you might be surprised at the answer, Mike, because I actually have one. And I'm going to use this opportunity to quote from my forthcoming book, Dancing Past the Graveyard, What Ghosts Have to Say About God. Now, that's been forthcoming for some years now, and it is getting there and will hopefully appear next year. But this is a quote from that, which answers the question, really, strangely enough, I think. What is the secret of the universe? It is no secret. It's right in front of you. But you've been taught not to see it. And it is this. The creation didn't take place 16 or 18 billion years ago. It only began, and it has never ended. As a matter of fact, it's expanding by billions of worlds and versions of worlds each nanosecond. The paranormal is simply the most obvious clue of this. So that's, might be reworked a little, but that's essentially my answer to that question. And it's very important to realize these are questions, all of them that we receive here, I think, that come from the Western mindset, that we somehow have a very limited set of parameters as far as reality is concerned. And we get into that when we talk about, as we did with one of these questions, the notion of evidence. What is it that actually constitutes proof of anything? Or evidence of anything. We have some very good friends in particularly the UFO field who believe that they have evidence of landings, and they do, I'm sure. But it's evidence, again, that is sifted through the mesh of such as it is, of our 5 physical senses. Scientists, many of whom I have great respect for, and science that I have tremendous respect for, uses a vision of the world that is essentially based on materialism. Everything is matter, and what we see in the world results from the reactions of it and other matter. And really, energy kind of functions in and around and through matter. So again, it's inadequate. It has been blown out of the water pretty much by quantum mechanics, and there we have it. But again, all our training is still based on this idea that it's all material. So as a result, what is the secret of the universe? And nobody knows. Well, sure we know. It's right. As I say, it's right in front of us. It's that the creation never ended. And even theologically, people are always blaming me for not embracing their religious beliefs after they find out I've spent all these years in the seminary. Well, creation is supposed to be an act of love, ultimate love by God. Is ultimate love to create just one creation? Or is ultimate love, divine love, to create every possible creation? And every possible creation through the idea of the quantum mechanics and the multiple worlds interpretation, that when you commit any act at all or do anything or make an observation, you are creating really a new world, a different universe, where the only difference might be that you drop that teacup on the floor. And it separates from the world where you didn't drop the teacup on the floor. Can you imagine the world's being created by everything in the world all the time? This is the ultimate expression of love. And that, to me, is the secret of the universe. The creation is ongoing and will never end, even after all has been fulfilled, perhaps, if you take that approach. We had some very interesting questions on our last Open Line show about the idea, can you fill up eternity? Can you fill up infinity? The idea, there was a very good question that if all possibilities and all probabilities exist in a concrete way somewhere or somewhere in the multiverse, and we rely on this multiverse to explain the paranormal, ghost sightings, and all this business are not spirits of dead people, they're the actual people in parallel worlds, at the risk of oversimplification. And my answer to the question was, well, both are true. If worlds are being created all the time, it doesn't mean that every possibility doesn't exist. What you're doing is creating new possibilities and new probabilities all the time. This is the essence of creation. This is, I think, the secret of the universe. So if that answers the question, I hope it does, and I hope it, maybe expands consciousness maybe a little bit. Who knows? All right, now let's turn to, Ben has stepped away for just a moment, by the way. Here is a question. This is from Megan in Seattle, and it goes back quite a ways. So, hi, Paul and Ben. Crazy about your show. You have... here he comes. You have really clarified my thought on many things paranormal and spiritual. My question is about poltergeists. Everybody loves poltergeists, or at least loves to find out about them.
Sounds like a really bad sitcom. Anyway,
you missed the answer to the question, what's the secret of the universe?
42.
Ben's quicker than I am. 42 what?
42.
Explain. It's not like the caterpillar.
No, it's from the book of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they build. This super race builds a computer to find out the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And the computer says 42, and they're like, "What does that mean?" He was like, "Well, you got to be more specific with the question."
Yeah,
it's like I gave you the answer, but you need to find the question.
The answer from one of my books, anyway.
Right. Alrighty, so where are we here?
With Paul.
Paul. I recently read your book, Faces at the Window, and the story about the poltergeist that broke the rules really scared me. How many cases have you had where the poltergeists affect more than one house? What does that say about the old theories of poltergeists and the agent? Do you want to go with that? Do you want to go with that, or do you want me to continue?
Let's start with that one.
Okay, easy enough.
Well, the agent, if you don't know, is the classic, I suppose, parapsychological interpretation of what the poltergeist is. In other words, so the agent is somebody who's going through great trauma, or a child going through puberty. That's the classic example. And they give off all this energy, and they create, effectively, the phenomenon of the poltergeist. Now,
see, the question I always wanted to ask, which I never figured out, how do these people do that? Like, well, psychokinesis, but it's like, but how?
Well, that's a very good question. See, you've never encountered a poltergeist, have you?
No.
In the knockdown, drag-out sense of the term.
No.
Yet.
Well, see, then if the whole thing is, oh, well, it's the agent producing it, it's like, well, how are they doing that?
Well, they don't have any other explanation, generally, in traditional parapsychology. I mean, the Rhines the wise of Rhine used to kind of accept that, although I don't think she was satisfied with it. But in any case, I think again, not good enough. When I've had poltergeist experiences, that in the sense of investigating cases where they were occurring, that didn't seem good enough. It didn't seem like there was that. I really felt the presence of real entities, and then that rose the question. That brought up the question: are the entities actually causing the phenomena? Stuff flying around, stuff hitting me in the leg, and all this business. Breaking a woman's toe in one case, or throwing the child across the room. There was that, and there was the question of is it them, or are there the energies that allow them to manifest through the thin walls of parallel worlds, creating those phenomena, or is it some other explanation? So But I never found the agent explanation good enough. But that's what
I suppose
Megan
that makes
means
sense. I
when
suppose that makes sense.
Well, that's what Megan means when she's talking about the agent.
Right.
And the whole idea is, well, all right, faces at the window. Story. Okay, the poltergeist that affected the whole neighborhood. The poltergeist that broke the rules being just as we just explained.
Right.
I started finding in the mid 1970s, that early, that these things, when you looked, did seem to affect a number of different areas. They didn't seem to affect just one house, usually. They didn't seem to affect even one area of houses. You'd often find there were sightings of UFOs or other paranormal events. Now, maybe I was just looking for that because I happened to be concentrating on that area.
Right.
But on the other hand, I think that many investigators to this day do not bother to look beyond even the backyard of the house they may be investigating. Or it may not even be a house. It could be an area of woodland, such as the Village of Voices case, that sort of thing.
Right.
So I think that probably what you're looking at here is a very common phenomenon. I don't think there's any reason to be afraid of it. And again, the answer is keeping it positive, Megan. Keep the positive energy going. Now, you might have very negative neighbors. They might always be fighting, and that doesn't help things. But just, even if you meditate and sort of broadcast, send out compassion and love and extend that white light kind of thing, that really works to your whole neighborhood, to your whole town, to the whole country, to the whole world. That's a good thing, and it can't hurt. So I would say just, again, keep it as positive as you can. Now, what's the second part?
Also, if you have poltergeist stuff going on, how do you tell if it's coming from your house or a family or a neighbor? Okay,
well, very good question. I think people should know their neighbors, not to determine if they're poltergeist fodder or anything, but to have a positive relationship and kind of know what's going on in your neighborhood. Also, if you have any kind of sensitivity at all, which most people do, you will feel negativity coming from a certain house or whatever.
Right.
And I would say that that's something, but at the very least, sort of lay that blanket of positive energy from your own spirit to the area.
Indeed.
Each night, at least, or each day, whenever you can. So, sort of keep your eyes open. That's the best thing. Okay, we're at another break coming up here, and you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS New Sky Radio and radio.com. We'll be right back to continue our messages. Stay with us.
This is where the mind meets the soul. CBS Radio's The New Sky. NewSkyRadio.com.
This is a message and a calling. So get up and gather around everyone. I've been withering and dying, trembling from trying, barely crawling. What can I do? What will I do? Nobody told me. Nobody told me. Nobody told me how heavy this life was gonna be. Here stands a silver line believer, not believing. A rosy-eyed dream awakening into a moment when hands are not given to the needing. What will become of the needing one? Nobody told me. Nobody told me. Nobody told me how heavy this life would be. How heavy this life would be. But I keep pushing on. Every day is getting heavier and heavier. marching on. This is a message and a calling.
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky. Back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com. Believe.
Welcome back to the final segment of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I am Ben, and over here is Paul, and right now we have our open line show where we are taking your emails and talking about them.
All right, here's one. This is from a... Well, you can just read it, but it's self-explanatory.
Right.
There's no name and no place.
No, but he writes to us, Dear Mr. Paul Eno, I'm a physician, not a shaman, and I have had unusual experiences. I don't know what my task on Earth is, despite my job. I, too, have strongly felt time growing short, very short. My question is, if it can be answered, is what I need to do... Let me read this. What do I need to do to ultimately get to the good place, quote unquote, that I'm not already doing now? And he said, yes, I know you know nothing about me. And that's it. That's the question.
Okay. Well, it's a good question. Excuse me. Much of this comes from, we're still getting questions about this, and a national radio appearance we made, not on this show, on another. Was it 2010, 2011? I don't know.
I think it was 2 years ago, so 2011.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah.
And we went out on a limb, and had we discussed this before we went on the show, would we actually come clean about this? But behind all the paranormal work that I've done and that Ben has done, there has been an impression, especially on my part, and Ben too, that we have that the period from, it wasn't the 2012 thing. I took that with a pillar of salt, but the period between 2012 and 2016 was going to be rather
bumpy, yeah. And personally, I saw a lot of bad things happening, particularly from the point of view of warfare, right? Nuclear warfare, more specifically, because that's a real danger. And I asked myself, maybe I'm falling back on my old military training from the 70s when that was a major factor in, well, it still is, of course, but major factor, huge exchanges of mass numbers of weapons were a concern at the time in the Cold War, so to speak. Then I asked myself, did I feel that, as this doctor does, the time is short, because I just turned 60 years old, and maybe it is short. But I look back at that, and I think as much as objectively as anybody can be, as objective as anyone can be, I look back at that and I think there really does seem to be something going on that is not good. There seem to be indications from, and again, this is not some kind of revelation or some kind of enlightened masters, and none of that nonsense is happening here. But in the course of paranormal work over many years, when you take the viewpoint that this is the multiverse and not dead people, it does kind of expand the experience. You do encounter all sorts of interesting neighbors, as it were, from parallel worlds. Some of them human, some of them not. Most of them neutral, or not even knowing you're there. Others quite aware. Some negative, some positive. But the positive ones who are aware, and even some of the neutral ones who are aware, when you rub shoulders with them, are all seemingly concerned about the same thing. Maybe it's the multiversal neighborhood. And anything as massive as, I suppose, a global event would affect many versions of the Earth nearby, as Ben described it before, sending out ripples throughout space-time. So that, I think, is the basis of this question. He's talking about agreeing with us, and we received thousands, and we expected to get a lot of derision after that broadcast. 2 out of 3,000 emails after that broadcast were negative. And one guy apologized later on. The rest were positive. People say, you really rang a bell here. I feel time is short. And these are sometimes young people. So what we're looking at here, I think, whoever this doctor may be, is that how do you ultimately get to the good, or as we call it, the good world? We felt that there are some people who need to be in touch with what I always refer to it as the good world. First, it came in dreams, and then actually waking experiences of it. Because as you grow into the multiverse awareness,
you're aware that you're already living in these parallel worlds. And the more positive you try and become, the more positive the worlds you experience.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful with that. You have to keep your feet on the ground because we have to do what we're given in this world too, because to make it better by being more positive ourselves.
Right.
And so you don't have to do really anything except be positive, Doctor. You're already in the good world. And again, this reaches to the point of what we were trying to make earlier. The point we were trying to make earlier. You're actually already in these worlds. You don't have to go anywhere. Whatever happens, if it happens, if we're not wrong about this, you're going to just be there already. And if your consciousness shifts there, which again, you just concentrate on the good, on the positive, and just relax. Let it go. Let it happen and be positive. That's really the best advice I could give. You don't have to do anything special to get there because you're already there. What you have to do is be aware that you are.
Right.
Anything to add to that?
No, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Just don't do anything stupid.
Well, right. Well, we all do things that are stupid. But
Right.
Have that awareness. Many people are running to us and saying that they feel attached to this.
Well, let's not make this a narcissistic thing where
No.
You're already there. You're super duper special.
Well, we're all already there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yes.
Unity.
That is the point.
The unity.
Unity, not just you, but unity.
You discover yourself by forgetting yourself.
Yes.
You fulfill yourself. You accept yourself, and then you forget yourself.
There is no I in team, as the saying goes.
That's right. I like that. I've never heard that before. That's good.
You've never heard there's no I in team?
No. Well, let's see how the Red Sox do tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there we have it. I think it's as simple as that. So,
all the cliches aside.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's about all we have time for this evening. And I would say, with a few announcements, we just returned from the, speaking of positive experiences, from the first New England UFO conference in Leominster, Massachusetts. And it was a very interesting and fun experience. Ben had to leave a little early, but I stuck around for the way. We spent some time with many of the UFO greats who are frequently on the show. We met some local listeners and made some new friends. And a sincere well done to our good friend Steve Fermani, who organized the event, and listened to us and everything else for information about the next event, which will take place next year. Probably, I suppose, Leominster, Massachusetts, in the very beautiful City Hall.
Yeah, it is a really nice looking
which
City
was
Hall.
full the whole day.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of interesting stuff.
All right, so you can visit our website at www.behindtheparanormal.com, where you can find over 500 free podcasts of past shows, and also check out our website, www.newenglandghosts.com, where there are case studies and photos along with articles by my dad.
And there will be our 500th show in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's coming up, isn't it?
It's going to be a lot of work.
Oh,
anyway.
Yes, it is.
So find my books on Barnes & Noble Nook, e-reader, and Amazon Kindle. But if you buy them directly at the BehindTheParanormal.com site, I will autograph them for you, and you will help us keep those podcasts free. Also on our sites, you'll find direct links to several charities that Ben and I have adopted, including USA Cares and Canadian Veterans Advocacy.
And many thanks to our producer, Brandon Jackson. And next week, November 3rd, we're not going to skip to the 30th just yet. We will welcome Scottish researcher Dr. Peter McHugh to discuss flap areas and paranormal hotspots around the world. Now we can bring up Matt's question again. So write to us at paul@behindtheparanormal.com or via our show Facebook page.
In the meantime, tune into our Boston Providence Drive Time show on WOON 1240 and onworldwide.com at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 Pacific, every Monday. And we'll leave you this evening with a thought from American poet Robert Frost. A person will sometimes devote all his life to the development of one part of his body, the wishbone.
Ha! I like that.
I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno, and thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time.